नमस्कार सम्पूर्ण मेरा मित्रहरू जो अहिले युट्युब, फेसबुक, इन्स्टाग्राम हेरेर बसिराख्नु भएको छ। तपाईँसँग म फेरि आज एउटा विशेष पाहुना लिएर आएको छु। आजको पाहुना हुनुहुन्छ डाक्टर केभिन डिक्सन। उहाँ फ्र्याङ्कलिन काउन्टीमा धेरै लामो समयदेखि काम गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ र हाम्रो समुदायमा पनि यो काम गर्न उहाँले धेरै अगाडिदेखि हाम्रो समुदायमा भिजेर हाम्रो समुदायलाई सहयोग गर्न धेरै काम गरेको हुँदा मैले उहाँलाई आज निम्ति आएको छु र तपाईँलाई सधैँ चाहिँ म फेरि अनुरोध गर्छु तपाईँले यो भिडियोलाई लाइक गर्नुहोला, सेयर गर्नुहोला र कमेन्ट पनि लेख्नुहोला र कृपया गरेर तपाईँले युट्युबमा गएर हेरिदिनुहुन्छ भन्ने मेरो ठुलो आशा छ। र म उहाँको छोटो परिचय तयार पारेको छु। म छोटो परिचय उहाँको भन्न चाहन्छु। Dr. Kevin Dixon recently retired after 34 years at Adam Board of Franklin County, where he was Vice President of Community and Cultural Engagement. He worked on many programs to support mental health and community wellness, including school, faith-based, immigrant, refugees, and prevention programs. In the year 1990, he led well-known Afrocentric training program, bringing national attention with speakers like Maya Angelou and others. He also served as interim CEO for the board. म उहाँको परिचय अब नेपालीमा पढेर सुनाउँदैछु। तपाईँ को हेर्नु हुँदैछ। डाक्टर केभिन डिक्सन हालै 34 वर्षपछि सेवानिवृत्त हुनुभयो। उहाँ फ्र्याङ्कलिन काउन्टी एडम बोर्डमा समुदाय र सांस्कृतिक संलग्नताका उपाध्यक्ष हुनुहुन्थ्यो। उहाँले विद्यालय, धर्म, आप्रवासी तथा शरणार्थी र निवारण कार्यक्रममा थुप्रै मानसिक स्वास्थ्य र समुदाय सुधारका कार्यक्रम सञ्चालन गर्नुभयो। 1990 को दशकमा उहाँले एक चर्चित एफ्रोसेन्ट्रिक प्रोग्राम ट्रेनिङ प्रोजेक्टको नेतृत्व गर्नुभयो, जसमा माया एन्जेलु लगायत थुप्रै प्रसिद्ध व्यक्तिहरू सहभागी भएका थिए। उहाँले केही समय कार्यवाहक CEO को भूमिका पनि निर्वाह गर्नुभयो। फिलाडेल्फियाबाट आएका डिक्सनले टेम्पल विश्वविद्यालयमा काम गर्नुभयो र 8 वर्षसम्म रेडियो टक सो चलाउनुभयो। यस कार्यक्रममा उहाँले जेम्स ब्राउन लगायतका जस्ता प्रसिद्ध व्यक्तिहरूसँग अन्तर्वार्ता पनि गर्नुभएको थियो। सन् 1986 मा उहाँले जिम म्यागोवानको इङ्ग्लिस च्यानल पौडी लगायतको टेलीमा इतिहासकार र रिपोर्टर्सहरूको सेवा गर्नुभयो, जुन विश्वभर प्रसारण गरियो। र आज मसँग हुनुहुन्छ यस्ता पाहुनालाई मैले निमन्त्रणा गरेको छु र आज यस विषयमा उहाँसँग बसेर भलाकुसारी गर्नेछौँ। र तपाईलाई सधैँ चाहिँ कृपया योलाई सेयर गर्न नभुल्दिनु होला। नमस्ते डाक्टर डिक्सन। Somehow I could not hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes,
good
now I
evening.
got it.
How are
Yes.
you? Namaste and good evening to everyone.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon, for finding the time today. In this program, how I'm going to do is I'll be asking you the question in English, and obviously you'll be answering in English only, and I will interpret your answer into Nepali. For that one, you don't need to make it short. Just go as long as you want, because many of our viewers, they understand both the languages. But
Great.
I'll simplify, summarize your answer in Nepali for all the viewers to understand. So let me tell this thing in Nepali again. मैले डाक्टर डिक्सनलाई सम्बोधन गरेँ। आज कार्यक्रममा आइदिनु भएकोमा उहाँलाई आभार प्रकट गर्दै यहाँ आइदिनु भयो, कार्यक्रममा सहभागी भइदिनु भयो र यो कार्यक्रममा सहभागी हुँदा कसरी यो काम गरिन्छ अङ्ग्रेजी र नेपाली भन्ने दो भाषीको कुरा उहाँलाई व्यवस्था मैले बताएँ। Right. Thank you. So first question is, Dr. Dixon, in 2014, when I arrived in Columbus, at that time I was super confused about what to do, what not to do. All of a sudden, you found me through a program or somebody introduced. I really don't remember the beginning part of it, but really into the program, I was kind of surprised how you were open and you welcomed me to Adam Board and doing the asked me to do a presentation where I didn't know how to make a proper presentation about our community. So that made I think we were introduced by from Adam from the Care Source representative. So
Okay.
yes, she introduced us. So that was a big thing for me, a really big thing. So thank you so much. So my first question to you is how you were involved with the refugee and immigrants community. How long you have been involved, and what is your connection in the beginning part of that? Can you tell me about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things when I started at AdamH, I was a public information officer. And part of what that meant was to go out and speak to the community, engage the community, find out some of their problems, needs, and interests. And so as my role in public affairs evolved, I became executive assistant to the president. At that time, it was Jonathan York, who was a Yale PhD in gerontology. So he put me on his team to be able to go out and create a family model where we can start to engage the community and find out some of their problems, needs, and interests. So fast forward when Dr. York left, Dr. Phil Cass came on board. And I know Dr. Cass's work with the Native American community here in Central Ohio was really significant. He had come from Southeast Community Mental Health Center. And he and I sat down and started to talk about, how do we start to bring cultural training to the entire, AdamH system of care, which was at that time probably close to 45 agencies. And so we created a number of initiatives, developed a number of programs to meet the diverse needs. We didn't really start to see an emergence of immigrant refugee populations and probably until the early 2000s. And so on my team, I had a staff person who actually did some outreach with the initial Somali community. There were some West African community members and things like that. But we've always, had a small portion focused on the Latinx community. So I was part of the Ohio Latino Mental Health Network, and we used to have Saturday sessions at the board. I was also part of the Association of Black Journalists, and all the journalists from the TV stations and radio stations and print would meet at the AdamH board. Then the Association of Black Psychologists, they met at the AdamH board. So all these different groups that I was involved in, I loaned space to meet on Saturdays at the AdamH board. And then so when new populations came to town, we wanted to be able to expand. So the Somali community really did not have a language or information about mental health. So we really needed to do some outreach because their community leaders approached us and started saying we had problems. It was almost like the same kind of approach when you and I first met. And you were telling me, I believe it was Colorado you were coming from, and you were
Yes.
new to Central Ohio. We had no clue about how many folks were going to migrate to Central Ohio, and especially with the Bhutanese and Nepali communities. We learned through Minneapolis more about the Somali community, and we took several trips out there to learn how to address the needs. But if you were my only source here to address the needs of the Bhutanese Nepali community and educating me. So I know when we, first started meeting, you were taking me out to the community. We went to the BCC, went out there to visit out there, and you told me about some of the problems and some of the challenges, and that was major.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Let me tell briefly about what you told me about that one. So मैले उहाँलाई सोधेको थिएँ 2014मा जति बेला म ओहायोमा सरेको थिएँ त्यो बेला नयाँ नयाँमा हुँदा उहाँले मलाई उहाँको अफिसमा कोही एउटा केयर सोर्सको मान्छेबाट म उहाँसँग चिन्जान भएको थियो। हठात मलाई बोलाउनु भयो उहाँको अफिसमा बोलाएर म ठुलो रुममा राखेर उहाँले बहुत धेरै कुराहरू फटाफटी के गर्ने कसो गर्ने भन्नुभयो। त्यति बेला मलाई बिल्कुल केही पनि थाहा पनि थिएन। तर थाहा नभए पनि मलाई प्रेजेन्टेसन गर्न लागि यो प्रेजेन्टेसन गरेर के हो त कम्युनिटीको निड भनेर भन्नुभएको जति बेला मलाई केही ज्ञान नभइकन अनि मैले गर्दै गर्दा मलाई कसरी कामहरू गर्न चाहिँ गर्नुभयो त हामीलाई कसरी रिच आउट गर्नुभयो नयाँ कम्युनिटीलाई भन्दा उहाँ भन्नुहुन्छ उहाँ पहिले एडम बोजमा काम गर्दाखेरि उहाँको प्रेसिडेन्टसँग काम गर्नुहुन्थ्यो त्यहाँको त्यति बेला पब्लिक इन्फर्मेसन नेटवर्कमा उहाँले काम गर्नुहुन्थ्यो र समाजमा कसरी छिर्ने भन्ने कुराहरूसँग धेरै कुराहरू हुन्थे। एडम बोर्ड भनेको बहुत ठुलो एजेन्सी हो। यहाँ धेरैवटा सङ्घ संस्थाहरूलाई चाहिँ एडम बोर्डले पैसा दिएर काम लगाउने काम गर्छ। त्यो गर्दा त्यति बेला 45वटा एजेन्सीहरू थिए र सन् 2000तिरको कुरा चाहिँ अब धेरैवटा नयाँ नयाँ कुराकानी हुँदाखेरि लेटिनेक्स कम्युनिटीहरूसँग मात्रै काम गर्ने अरू बाहिरका मान्छेहरू काम नगर्ने त्यस्तो खालको काम गर्ने त्यस्तो व्यवस्था परिपाटी नै थिएन। तर त्यसै गर्दै अब नयाँ बढ्दै जाँदाखेरि सोमाली कम्युनिटीहरू यहाँ आए। सोमाली कम्युनिटीलाई कसरी चिन्ने, कसरी जान्ने भन्नको लागि उहाँहरू मिनियापोलिसमा जानुभयो। त्यहाँको समाजको के छ चुनौतीहरू भन्ने कुराहरू बुझ्नुभयो। तर हाम्रो कम्युनिटी जहाँसम्म भुटनिस नेपाली कम्युनिटीको छ, त्यो चाहिँ बिल्कुल उहाँसँग केही पनि थाहा थिएन। म मात्रै त्यहाँ उहाँ पुगेर उहाँलाई भेटेका कारणले गर्दा उहाँलाई सबै कुरा गर्न सजिलो भयो। र उहाँ बिसिसिओमा नि आउनुभएको त्यति बेला, म त्यति बेला चेयरम्यान थिएँ, अलिक पछाडिको कुरा हो। र बिसिसिओमा आएर बिसिसिओको मा हाम्रो भुटनिस कम्युनिटीको यस्ता च्यालेन्ज हुन्, यस्ता समस्या हुन् भन्ने कुरा उहाँलाई मैले कुराकानी गरेको थिएँ। Thank you, Dr. Dixon.
Mhm.
Uh, so now let me ask you this question because in the Bhutanese community there are many challenges. One of the challenge is mental health. So before I come to that one, let me give you the context how we grew up in Bhutan. So many of our audience, they may know Bhutan, many of them may not know because sometimes the audience are from all across the country, across the world also. Some audience from Nepal, Bhutan, some are from anywhere in the world right now, the internet. One challenge when we grew up in Bhutan is, I'll give you one example so that many of our audience can understand. Bhutan is ruled by a king who thinks that one people, one language, one religion, and one dress is the requirement of that citizen. And that was enforced, not only conceptualized, it was enforced. And one young lady of that time, 1990, she did not know how to read the language of a king, which is called Dzongkha. And that lady was forced by the teacher, Dzongkha teacher, the teacher of that language, to carry that teacher on her back and move around school building for not knowing how to read that one. So that was one of the examples, and that was practically done in almost all the schools. So whatever the king's clan want to do, they were able to. They were free to do everything else. So that was one of the background, one part of a situation of our community faced the persecution in that country. So then we were forced back into the refugee camp, and we were there almost 20 some years. And when we were resettled in the United States, what I used to think is America is perfect. There is nothing called problem in this country because it's all equal. Everybody's been treated with the respect and all those things. So I want you, because I went to the training with Dr. Nichols, where I learned so many different things. I'm always thankful for him. Can you share me some of the context? What was the life when you grew up? Because I think that's related to our community. I want these two communities to have know about each other during the early days of their life.
Mhm.
Let me translate this into Nepali so that our other folks can
Good.
understand. म डाक्टर डिक्सनलाई क्वेसन सोध्दैछु। हाम्रो अवस्थाको जति बेला हामी भुटानमा थियौँ, यो 1990को चुनाव 90को दशकमा भुटानमा लोद्रा स्कुलमा एकजना हाम्रो त्यति बेलाको सानो बहिनीले कुनै जोङ्खा भाषा पढ्न नजान्दाखेरि त्यहाँको लोप्यानले उनलाई बोकेर स्कुल वरिपरि घुमाउन लगाएका थिए। एउटा आन्दोलनको एउटा प्रस्फुटन, एउटा विस्फोट त्यहाँबाट पनि भएको थियो। अनि यस्तो खालको अन्याय त गालोङ जातिले अरू जातिमाथि सबैतिर गर्ने हामीले धेरै बुझेका थियौँ। म डाक्टर डिक्सनलाई सोध्दैछु, जति बेला हामी पुनर्वास भएर अमेरिका आउने बेलामा त अमेरिकामा त कुनै समस्या छैन होला, सबै राम्रै राम्रो होला भन्ने थियो। र मलाई उहाँलाई सोध्दैछु, अमेरिकामा चाहिँ अलिकति भनौँ निम्न वर्गका मान्छेहरूलाई कस्तो खालको व्यवस्था हुन्थ्यो, यहाँ के थियो त भनेर मैले उहाँलाई सोधेको छु। ल हेरौँ उहाँको उत्तर के आउँदो रहेछ। Go ahead.
Good. Well, I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and born into a military family. My father was in the Marine Corps. And one of the things when you're in a military family in the United States, you travel. So I was born in Virginia, lived in North Carolina, lived in Hawaii, 2 blocks from the beach for 3 years. Came back to Philadelphia, moved out to the suburbs of Philadelphia, went to school in Amish country, and just stopping there, the exposure to so many different people at such an early age gave me an appreciation for otherness and something outside my worldview, and I really took in the cultures and the communities that we lived in. When we lived in Hawaii for 3 years, it was learning traditional Hawaiian songs, Hawaiian dances, learning the language, exposing myself to the different cultural art communities that were there. And so I learned a lot. And everywhere I went, I was exposed to something new. And I embraced it. I saw that as added value to my development. My father was, before he went into the military, he didn't get an opportunity to go to college. But at that time, there was so much discrimination, and with the Jim Crow laws, that you had very few opportunities. And the military was one opportunity where he could get out and participate, as did many of my family members on his side, as well as my mother's side. The military was the only opportunity to have a decent living, to be able to see the world and enjoy. My father was extremely brilliant. He never went to college until he came back from Vietnam, but he was well read. He was taught by a Jewish woman in Teaneck, New Jersey, who spent a lot of time, working with him because she, saw him with promise. And he was an expert in Shakespeare. He was a historian. He was a writer. He did all kinds of things. He was kind of a Renaissance person. And so we grew up in a house where we have everything from bouillabaisse to sushi when I was in elementary school. And we would make it, and I would take it to school for home ec, they called it here. And so he exposed me to a lot besides hunting and fishing. So he did a lot of different things. My mother was basically a homemaker until she started working, and she became the manager of the military exchange, which was the store on post. And she would buy clothes, travel to New York, and had to sort of that business life. So we were all, engaged, living out in a small community outside of Philadelphia once we finally settled down from all the moving. And we stayed out there through my junior high and senior high school years. Then I went to college in the middle of Amish country, which was another culture. So college was, totally different for me. It was, at 18 or 17 to 18, you just didn't know what to expect. So that kind of gives you my early upbringing and exposure.
थ्याङ्क यू। मैले उहाँलाई त्यो सोधेको, उहाँ भन्नुहुन्छ उहाँको बुवा आर्मीमा हुनुहुन्थ्यो, मिलिट्रीमा भएकोले गर्दा उहाँलाई संसारभरि घुमिरहनुहुन्थ्यो। कोही बेला एउटा ठाउँबाट कोही बेला अर्को ठाउँमा, कोही बेला अर्को ठाउँमा चारपट्टि घुमेर उहाँको विभिन्न किसिमका संस्कार, विभिन्न किसिमका संस्कृति, विभिन्न जात जातिका मानिसहरूसँग भेट्ने उहाँको अवसर भयो। सानामा पहिले उहाँ नर्थ क्यारोलाइना, हवाई, अमिस कन्ट्रीमा भएर त्यो विभिन्न किसिमका नयाँ नयाँ ठाउँमा उहाँलाई देखिसकेपछि यो मदेखि बाहिरको अर्को दुनियाँ पनि बहुत भिन्नै रहेछ भन्ने खालको उहाँलाई चेतना पनि आयो। र 18-20 वर्षको उमेर उहाँ हुन लाग्दाखेरि चाहिँ उहाँले कलेज जानुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा आइसकेपछि कलेजमा जाँदा के गर्ने, कसो गर्ने, कस्तो खालको अवस्था थियो भन्ने कुरा कन्फ्युज हुँदाहुँदै उहाँले त पढाइ पनि सक्नुभयो। उहाँको बाल्यकाल बहुत रमाइलो पनि थियो, मजाको पनि थियो, किनभने उहाँको बुवाको चाहिँ यहाँनिर जिम क्रो भन्ने एकजना यहाँको राष्ट्रपतिले चाहिँ काला जातिका लागि र गोरा जातिका लागि फाल्टै फाल्टै व्यवस्था भनेर बनाएका कारणले गर्दा काला जातिका मान्छेलाई बहुत किसिमको अन्याय थियो। र अन्यायका कारणले गर्दाखेरि धेरै कहीँ पनि अवसर थिएन काला जातिका मान्छेहरूलाई। तर उहाँको बुवाले आर्मीमा गएका कारणले खालि आर्मी मात्रै थियो, र आर्मीमा गएर चाहिँ उहाँले त्यो राम्रो अवसर पाउनुभयो। र उहाँको उहाँ भन्नुहुन्छ मेरो बुवा चाहिँ भयङ्कर स्मार्ट हुनुहुन्थ्यो। उहाँ धेरै पढ्ने लेख्ने भएको व्यक्ति भएकाले गर्दा कस्तो काम गर्दा चाहिँ अवसर नानीहरूलाई पनि पुग्छ भन्ने उहाँले पहिले चाल पाएकोले गर्दाखेरि त्यो सफलता हासिल गर्न पुग्नुभयो भन्नुहुन्छ। थ्याङ्क यू डाक्टर डिक्सन। So so after that, so next question to me is to you, the other part, which is, and the same one is, after coming to the United States, let me talk about my own story. There were so many new things. Like I share the example of about a pizza being the new one. Like I have no clue what the pizza was because never seen the pizza. So many new things in this country. So moving forward, like that was the physical things unknown. Like talking, what unknown is unknown. The question is like whether you call pizza or how to ride the bus between the two different places, or let's say how to buy a gas. They're simple things. These are all new things. So navigating that was one of the struggles, right? But when you go to a higher level, like let's say example of a police things. Let's give you an example of police. Like police, when we came from Nepal or Bhutan, which I can tell there was a police at that time. I really don't know what is now, but when I was there, they were so corrupt. Like the moment you have been getting into the police means that you have to pay money out of pocket and get out of it. So those kind of cultures were there. So once I arrived here, those new things were there, those struggles were there, and getting to know you. That when I share about you, you immediately found out that these are the need of our community. Can you tell me about your experiences dealing with which you brought before a little bit about new communities in larger context.
Mhm.
Like you started the Afrocentric
That's right.
project. Can you share about that, to those things?
Okay.
Oh, let me tell that into I always forget. मैले उहाँलाई सोधेँ नयाँ ठाउँमा आउँदा बहुत धेरै कुरा नयाँ हुन्छन्। जस्तै हामी यहाँ आउँदाखेरि मलाई पिज्जा पनि नयाँ लागेको थियो भने ग्यास किन्न जान पनि जानिँदैन थियो। विभिन्न किसिमको नयाँ नयाँ छन्। डाक्टर डिक्सनलाई म सोध्दैछु त उहाँले ठुल्ठुला प्रोजेक्टहरू गर्नुभएको छ नयाँ समाजलाई सँग नयाँ समाजलाई मिलाएर हिँड्नको लागि भनेर उहाँले एफ्रोसेन्ट्रिक प्रोग्राम पनि गर्नुभएको छ। एफ्रोसेन्ट्रिकको बारेमा के हो भनिदिनुहोस् न भने चाहिँ।
Yeah. Well, to kind of finish up where college left off, in college, it was it was pretty much regional, folks. But I got an opportunity to meet a number of different individuals, so it exposed me to something that I wasn't, totally aware of. And then I got involved in college radio and became the station manager of my college radio station. And so I would meet with the advisor as well as the vice president for student affairs, and we had to do something that was called a community ascertainment study, which we had to go out into the community and meet with civic leaders, meet with the community leaders, meet with faith leaders, and talk to them about some of the problems, needs, and interests that was happening in the community. So that gave me a grounding for when I was in college, to understand that it's just more than just what you see and how you learn. So when I eventually finished college, before I finished college, I started getting involved with Philadelphia Talk Radio. A friend of mine, right in the neighborhood I grew up, took me down to the radio station. We went down to the radio station, and the woman there, who became my mentor for a number of years, she was trained as an RN, but had a master's in health administration, but also was, when she was 62, went back and got her law degree. Just brilliant. But she exposed me to so much about people, about the systems. We looked at the micro system, which was the family. We looked at the meso system, which were the institutions, and then we looked at the macro systems, which were the structures, the policies, and the laws that govern big cities. And I was out covering a lot of events in Philadelphia, so it got me comfortable. Also, I worked for Junior Achievement, and in my role with Junior Achievement, I met with CEOs of companies, and also met with their staff of some of the major corporations in Philadelphia, whether it was law firms, whether it was accounting firms, whether it was oil companies, things like that. And I got a chance to see their kids in action in these very private schools, and you saw the disparities in where the those with money really lived out. So when I got to Columbus, I had no job, but I knew a politician who knew a politician here in town, and it was David Richardson, who was a state representative. Said, I have a friend in Columbus named Ray Miller, who is at that time was a state representative, and Ray had just finished working with Jimmy Carter in the Carter administration. So that really, when I got here, I met with Ray's wife for this position. I didn't know it even existed, and that's what began my opening to understanding. Hey, as a public information officer, this gives me the opportunity to serve a lot of communities, and I'm going to do the best I can based on my work there in Philadelphia.
Oh, thank you, because I asked that question too early. So,
That's right.
डाक्टर डिक्सनले भन्नुहुँदैछ उहाँको कलेजको जिन्दगी बताउँछु भनेर। कलेजमा जाँदाखेरि कलेजमा पढ्ने अवसरमा उहाँले बहुत धेरैवटा अरू अवसरलाई पनि मौका लिनुभयो। त्यहाँनिर गएर कलेज रेडियोमा काम गर्न सुरु गर्नुभयो। कलेज रेडियो काम गर्दै उहाँको त्यसको भाइस प्रेसिडेन्ट पनि हुनुभयो। अनि धेरैजना समाजका मान्छेसँग भेट्ने पनि अवसर उहाँले पाउनुभयो। त्यो मौकाको फाइदा लिएर। अनि त्यो गर्ने क्रममा रेडियोमा काम गर्नुभयो फिलाडेल्फियामा बसेर। अनि पोलिसीहरू बनाउने, नियमहरू बनाउने खालको कुरा हुँदै गर्दा अनि जुनियर अचिभमेन्ट अनि प्राइभेट स्कुलको ठुलो कुरा चाहिँ उहाँले भन्नुहुन्छ, जुन चाहिँ निजी विद्यालय हुन्छ, निजी विद्यालयमा त्यो कार्यक्रममा जाने हुँदा उहाँले त्यति बेला पाउनुभयो कि यहाँका धनाढ्यहरूको जिन्दगी र गरिब मान्छेको जिन्दगी कस्तो छ अमेरिका भन्ने कुरा उहाँले देख्नुभयो। र त्यस्तो हुने कुरामा डेस्पेरिटिस भनेको चाहिँ अब धनीलाई फाल्टै खालको सुविधा छ यो देशमा पनि, गरिबलाई फाल्टै खालको सुविधा छ। त्यो भएर जब उहाँ त्यहाँबाट बसाइ सर्दै कोलम्बस ओहायोमा आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ, कोलम्बस ओहायोमा त उहाँ जागिर थिएन, यतिकै आउनुभएको थियो। रे मेलर भन्ने चाहिँ यहाँको त्यति बेलाको जिमी कार्टरको एडमिनिस्ट्रेसनमा थियो। जिमी कार्टर राष्ट्रपति हुँदाखेरि उहाँसँग काम गर्नुहुन्थ्यो, तर गएर पछाडि फर्केर आइसकेपछि यहाँको ओहायोमा हाउस अफ रिप्रेजेन्टेटिभमा हुनुहुन्थ्यो। उहाँलाई भेटेर उहाँको श्रीमतीसँग कुराकानी गरिसकेपछि एउटा जागिरको कुरा भयो। त्यति बेला जागिर छ भन्ने पनि थाहा नभइकन उहाँलाई भेट्नुभयो र त्यहाँबाट उहाँको जिन्दगी यहाँ सुरु भयो भन्नुहुन्छ। So let's go a little bit back, Dr. Dixon, to go my question. So Can you tell me your experience about working in a radio stations? The reason is that one of the things that I had not expected from you, because I know you for almost now 10 years now,
Right.
but I have so many things I know from you. But there's one thing which I don't know, never knew. I did not expect that you were with a radio station. Can you tell me about that a little more?
Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to college. And one day I went down to the college radio station just to take a look. And it just opened up the whole new world for me. I said, wow, this is exciting. So when I was in college, I used to bring in entertainers, performers, and I did my Sunday midnight or Sunday uh 10 to midnight show and played oldies. It was WIXQ, all hit radio in the Ville, right here in Philadelphia, and it was that kind of stuff. And then I worked for WDAS, which was WDAS FM, The Breakfast Show. Thanks for listening. Get ready for Insight Inner City with Braheen Ahmadiyya. Those are the kinds of things, and I just fell in love with the stuff. But what I did do in college, it was more about the music and more about having, enjoyment and things like that. But when I got to Philadelphia, it was all about serving the community, and it was totally different. It was a Sunday talk show. It was a 3-hour talk show, and then I supervised the afternoon evening talk shows on the AM station. And WDAS FM was a 50,000 watt station, which was a major station in Philadelphia. So we covered Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware. So you had a listening population base of up to 1 million plus that listened to the station on a regular basis. And I was 20 years old, and but I was learning on the job, because I'd never experienced working with community, finding out what community issues. So we address issues from politics to computer science to educational institutions, into the prison industrial complex, to starting small businesses. Interviewed judges, interviewed performers, interviewed actors. I used to cover a lot of the shows that went on in Philadelphia, the local acting community shows and things like that. So exposed me to every walk of life. We had physicians that would come on periodically. We had spiritualists that would come on and talk to us. We'd have community-based organizing groups come on and talk to us. And I was involved something called the Move organization. It was a Back to Nature group, and the city had problems with it back in 1978, and then under Mayor Rizzo, and then when Mayor Good took over, they came back, and they basically held our community hostage by putting a barricade around their house. What happened when I was actually at work, because my full-time job was working at Temple University with the community education program, working with in the African American Studies department. We were getting calls on that Sunday before Mother's Day saying there's a lot of people moving in heavy equipment in. We're not sure it's the police or what's going on. Well, that next day, I was meeting with Malcolm X's wife, and I
Wow.
came out at Temple University, and I saw the entire city in orange glow. And I said, must be a big fire somewhere. And we found out that the city elected to drop a bomb on that Rowan house, but they used C4, which was an incendiary that spread the entire 2 blocks, and they told people they'd be back in their homes in a couple of hours. After 11 people died, and the 2 blocks of all those homes, and homes are very tightly situated. They're row homes in Philadelphia. 2 city block fulls of row homes were incinerated.
Wow.
And the only people that died were the people that were in the home, because the fire was so intense, and they shot water cannons on it all day. And it was, I hate to use this phrase, it was all hell break loose, back on the
Wow.
radio station, because calls were coming in. People were concerned. People were angry. We were worried about, any kind of unrest in the city. It was a major event, and it captured the world. Pictures around the situation happened. It was called MOVE, move bombing, and you can look that up. So that's, and so that got me so interested in going out and covering stories. I did the fun stuff. I would go to, get tickets to go to major events. I interviewed James Brown, who was a big recording artist, and his band, Chubby Checker, who did the twist. I interviewed so many folks, Gil Scott Heron, all kinds of, what's his name? He's a cinematographer, did several films, Gordon Parks, opera singers, all of that. So it was just for a kid, from 20 to 20, 26, 27, it was 28 rather. It was just exciting times.
Wow. थ्याङ्क यू डाक्टर डिक्सन। सो मैले उहाँलाई सोधेको थिएँ, तपाईँले सबैभन्दा ठुलो मलाई अचम्म लागेको रेडियो स्टेसनमा काम गरेको कुरा चाहिँ कसरी काम गर्नुभयो भनेर मैले सोधेको थिएँ। उहाँलाई जति बेला भर्खर कलेज सक्ने बित्तिकै उहाँको काम केही थिएन, के गर्ने भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ रेडियोमा काम गर्दा चाहिँ भयङ्कर ठुलो अवसर हुन्छ भन्ने उहाँले मौका पनि पाउनुभयो र त्यसलाई बहुत धेरै मौका पनि दियो। कारण किनभने बिहान बेलुका जाने रेडियो स्टेसनमा बस्ने, कुरा गर्ने, बहुत धेरै मान्छे, कोही बेला डाक्टर, कोही बेला इन्जिनियर, कोही बेला गीत गाउने मान्छेलाई ल्याउने, इन्टरभ्यू गर्ने, उनीहरूसँग इन्टरभ्यू गरेपछि उनीहरूसँग सिक्ने बहुत धेरै ठुलो मौका पाइयो। हाम्रो नानीहरूले पनि त्यो गर्नुपर्छ होला जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई। धेरै ठुलो मौका पाउनुभयो। मौका पाइसके पछाडि एउटा ठुलो घटना भयो त्यो सिटीमा, एउटा कोही बिल्डिङ लडाउने कुरा, सिटीको कुरा गरिसकेपछि बहुत बहुत ठुलो घटना, त्यसले चाहिँ संसारभरि त्यो न्युज पनि भयो। एउटा बिल्डिङमा बम ल्याएर पड्काउने कुरा गरे र 2-3 घन्टामा सबै कुरा सकिन्छ भन्दा 11 जना मान्छे पनि त्यहाँ मरेका थिए र त्यो खबर चाहिँ बहुत रेडियो स्टेसनमा बहुतै ठुलो चर्चाको विषय, संसारभरिको न्युज पनि कभर गरेको थियो। त्यो विषयमा पनि म त्यहीँ थिएँ भन्ने कुरा गर्नुहुन्छ। Thank you, Dr. Dixon. So I'll come back to the earlier question in a minute, but the other part of that one is like when I think about Dr. Nichols, he talked a lot about how was the ACE score or the growing up, the situation, what kind of opportunities were there, how does that work, but between different communities. During your time before coming to before coming to Columbus, while you were in Philadelphia, while working in the radio station, do you have any experience? Can you share some of those situations of the different communities? Because I just want to relate that one here.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because when I was in college during the summers, I actually worked for something that probably was contributing to the alcoholism problem. I worked for a state liquor control board. At 18, that was the only there was a state job, and you sold alcohol to the community, to different populations. So I had to go into the Italian community, had to go into a Jewish community, I had to go into a Polish community, I had to go into an African American community, I had to go to a Puerto Rican community, and all the diversity. And Philadelphia is very segmented and very segregated in terms of different communities. And I would have to go in there as a and pick up crates and things like that. I did labor work, but then I also sold alcohol as well. But I got to learn those communities and learn their customs and learn their systems of operation, doing that during the summer. So that when I got to Columbus, I have already been exposed to a lot of diversity, but I never realized when I got to Columbus that you could live anywhere, because in Philadelphia you had a Jewish section, you had a Polish section, you had an Italian section, you had a maybe a Ukrainian kind of section, you had an African American community, and so everybody was in their own communities and they had your own foods. But so when I went out to eat in those different communities, you had to eat what was in their community. So if you went to an Italian community, oh yeah, they had sandwiches like hoagies and cheesesteaks. That was kind of their thing. But you also had pizza. You go into a Polish community, get the Polish sausage, so that's, I was immersed in those communities by working there. And then getting to Columbus, everything was kind of mixed in. There wasn't a lot of diversity here. And there was the biggest, entity of culture was OSU football, which like, what's OSU football, but the city would shut down for it. And it really oriented me. And people, my last day on the radio, when I was leaving, people were saying, we pray for you because you're going to a cow town. And I'm sitting there, a cow town? It can't be that bad. And I got here and I was asking the person driving, I said, where's the downtown? And they said, there it is right over there. And I said, no, the real downtown. They said, that's it. It was like 5 tall buildings. And in Philadelphia, you have, 80, 90 tall buildings downtown. And it was this little swath of buildings. And I said, oh my goodness, where have I landed? it was a hard adjustment for me. I would always go back to Philadelphia because you go to the Greek festival one weekend, then you go to what we call the radio station where I work for hosted something called Unity Day. And they would have 1 million people out on the parkway where Rocky runs up the steps at the art museum. And that, they would have health services, they would have music, big time entertainment, Patti LaBelle, anything, that went on. There's major artists. And that's, I wanted to do the same thing here in Columbus, which kind of led me into, the conference stuff that we'll talk about later.
थ्याङ्क यू डाक्टर डिक्सन सो मैले उहाँलाई सोधेँ थिएँ उहाँको कस्तो छ फिलाडेल्फियाको र यहाँको जिन्दगी भन्ने कुरामा उहाँ भन्नुहुन्छ फिलाडेल्फिया भनेको चाहिँ अब यस्तो ठुलो सहर हो जहाँ चाहिँ विभिन्न जात जातिका मान्छेहरू बस्छन् एउटा एउटा ठाउँमा इटालियन छन् भने अर्को ठाउँमा अर्को देशका मान्छे अर्को ठाउँमा अर्को देशका मान्छे र धेरैतिरका मान्छे बस्छन् आज एउटामा गयो भने मैले अर्कोमा जाँदाखेरि विभिन्न किसिमको जात जातिका मान्छेहरूसँग बिच्ने भेट्ने एक्सपोजर हुने उहाँसँग कुरा गर्ने खालको अवसर हुन्छ भने कोलम्बस ओहायोमा त्यति बेला भनेको बहुत कम्ती त्यो अवसरहरू पनि थियो र उहाँ यहाँ आएर कुराकानी गर्दा उहाँका मान्छेहरूले भन्थे कोही के मान्छे नभएको ठाउँमा पुग्छौ भन्दाखेरि उहाँलाई त्यस्तै पनि भयो यहाँ आउँदाखेरि 1980 सो यु आर हियर अराउन्ड 80 1980 राइट
Yeah. I got here in 1987.
And 1987 कुरा आजभन्दा 30
and I
40
had to leave. And the big thing is I had to leave radio. So I did do some radio here. Had an opportunity to interview Don King and some other, folks. But radio wasn't as plentiful here, so I quickly moved into public information at Adam H. And that there was, my role was media relations as well as community relations and client rights, those kinds of things. So I got exposed to what was going on here.
Okay. All right. So this very one, यहाँ सर्नुभयो यहाँ सरेर अन्त रेडियोमा काम गर्दै अनि एडम बोर्डमा जानुभयो. So now let me ask you my question. So I have 3 more questions to go.
Sure.
One is Afrocentric Training Project. Can you tell about what is this and what you do? And also you had a very special guest, many special guests, but one of them was very super special. Can you talk about that?
Sure.
Before you go, let me tell my audience, तपाईहरु कसैको क्वेशन छ भने प्लिज तपाईं क्वेशन लेख्नु होला, शेयर गरिदिनु होला, कमेन्ट गर्नु होला. तपाईको कमेन्ट आज देखेको छैन र म डाक्टर डिक्सनलाई सोध्छु. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Well, when I got here, I saw a lot of the problems, and in 1989 and also a subsequent report in 1991 said that cultural communities, ethnic communities, were facing in mental health system, we're facing misdiagnosis, over medication, over hospitalization, underutilization of community-based care, and that service providers just didn't know enough about working with those populations. Even though it wasn't a large diverse population, it was enough to where we saw disparities. So I sat, having my house painted, I sat in a hotel room and said, what can I do? And I thought about something, and I started sketching a yellow pad saying, why don't I just bring in people from all those communities to teach our system of care and our not only just our clinicians, but also our administrators and also the support staff about different cultural communities. So after I sketched something out, I talked to Phil Cass at the time, who was his chief executive officer. And he said, I heard about an innovations grant that we can apply for, and maybe we can do some training. And I said, sure. And we had partnered with the Ohio Department of Mental Health for a little bit, and they were doing training with about 300 people. So I said, wow, we really need to make this a big thing. So after we applied for the grant, we got funded for 3 years, and it was, I think the first year was like $85,000. The next couple of years was like $200,000, but a total of about $500,000-$600,000, which is a lot of money. And I said, we ought to do something big. So we started in having some quarterly training sessions, and then we created this whole model for our system to participate, but we also provided the same opportunities for the community. And what we learned from all these different disciplines coming in, we brought folks from the African American community, the Asian American community, Latino community, the Appalachian community, and a couple of other populations that we wanted to work with. And so we brought in people like Stanley and Dwayne Sue, who are from the Asian community, who talked about cultural competence. We brought in Maya Angelou because we knew we had what we call edutainment. It was a form of educating, but also entertaining, because people are here for 3 days. We had over 1,400 people.
I'll come back with the Maya Angelou
sure.
part after it. So
gotcha.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. So it's very important. So उहाँ भन्नुहुन्छ सबै हामी सबैले ख्याल गर्ने पर्ने कुरा हामी डाक्टरकोमा जान्छौँ, डाक्टरलाई गएर कति कुरा भन्छौँ, कति कुरा भन्दैनौँ त ओभर मेडिकेसन कोही बेला हामीलाई एउटा चाहिनेमा 3टा दबाई लेखिरहेको हुन्छ भने कसैलाई 3टा चाहिनेमा एउटा दिइराखेको हुन्छ। यो चाहिँ के हो भने एउटा समाजले अर्को समाजलाई नचिनेका कारणले गर्दा यस्तो खालको अवस्था त्यहाँ आएको हुन्छ। र डाक्टर डिक्सन जब एडम बोर्डमा काम गर्न थाल्नुभयो उहाँले चाहिँ विभिन्न किसिमका मान्छेलाई ल्याएर यो कस्तो खालको व्यवस्था हुन्छ, यहाँको व्यवस्था के छ त व्यवस्थामा काम गर्न सुरु गर्नुभयो। त्यहाँ चिफ एक्जिक्युटिभ अफिसरसँग भेट्नुभयो, ओहायो डिपार्टमेन्ट मेन्टल हेल्थसँग कुराकानी गर्नुभयो अनि उहाँहरूले ग्रान्ट एप्लाई गरिसकेपछि यो ग्रान्टको माध्यमबाट सबै मान्छेहरूलाई विभिन्न किसिमका जात जातिका मान्छेहरूलाई कस्तो खालको सुविधा चाहिन्छ त्यो सुविधा दिनुपर्छ भन्ने मान्यता उहाँले ल्याइसके पछाडि उहाँ त्यसमा काम गर्न सुरु गर्नुभयो। त्यहाँ काम गर्दाखेरि उहाँले एसियन अमेरिकन कम्युनिटीका मान्छेलाई पनि ल्याउनुभयो। अरू अरू धेरै जातिका मान्छेलाई ल्याएर काम गर्दाखेरि उहाँले बाहिरबाट बहुत ठुला ठुला मान्छेहरू आएर चाहिँ यो ट्रेनिङमा भाग लिनुभयो। त्यसमध्येको एउटा माया एन्जिलो हुनुहुन्छ। र माया एन्जिलो भने को हो र के हो भन्ने कुरा म उहाँलाई सोध्छु। तपाईँ कसैको क्वेसन छ भने सोध्नु होला। All right. Thank you, Dr. Dixon. So why I stopped you there was like many people like in a large community at large, they know who Maya Angelou is, but many of my audience, they may not know who Maya Angelou is. So let me connect who Maya Angelou is for my audience to understand
Yeah.
about her. So Maya Angelou भनेको चाहिँ कस्तो भने त्यो समयको देपोटा हाम्रो लक्ष्मीप्रसाद देपोटा जस्तो यहाँको त्यस्तो खालको व्यक्ति हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँ बहुत धेरै विश्व प्रसिद्ध हुनुहुन्छ। हामीले उहाँको बारेमा धेरै पढेका छैनौँ, हामीले त्यही थाहा नहोला, सायद कतिलाई थाहा होला। तर त्यस्तो व्यक्तिलाई उहाँले ल्याउनु भयो र त्यो ल्याइसकेपछि कस्तो भयो त कुरा भन्नुहुन्छ। उहाँ माया एन्जेलोसँग उहाँको पिक्चर पनि पछाडि लगाइदिनु भएको छ। प्लिज गो अहेड डाक्टर डिक्सन।
Yeah. Well, we knew that we were bringing a lot of people into the conference, and we were expecting between 12 and 1,400, which we never had before. And we booked 2 hotels up, and we had the convention center, and we knew it was going to, just the food alone was going to be 45,000. This is back in 1993, so it was a lot of money. But I said, we don't have a headliner. We're not going to be able to attract a lot of people. So once we reached out, we tried to get Bill Cosby. He said he was busy. I'm glad we didn't get Bill Cosby. And then we tried a couple of other folks, but then we said, hey, Maya Angelou, she's doing President Clinton's inauguration. Let's bring her here. So it was a lot of back and forth. She started off at a mere $12,000 and went up to $15,000 all said and done. But we knew that we could attract people. And we were expecting for her presentation, which was open to the community, and I think we were selling tickets for $15. We knew her history in terms of being assaulted and growing up in poverty, but she used that after she was able to get her voice back because she didn't speak for a couple of years. She had a lot of trauma in her life. She started to write, and she started to tell her story, and became a very famous writer, but also a favorite famous poet. And she was well regarded, especially after she did the Clinton. So we got her before Clinton, but in between Clinton was inaugurated, she did that. She blew up. And they raised her price, the agency that was representing her. So we had a limousine. I went on the limousine to go pick her up at the airport, and everybody was stopping her. We couldn't walk 2 steps. It was almost like when we used to bring Dick Gregory in, some other stars. People would stop you along the way, and you had to take pictures and all that stuff. But she came in, but she sat in the car, and she said, she asked me about my family, and I told her my daughter was named Maya. She was born on April the 4th, which was Maya Angelou's birthday. And she told me what to tell her and what to do with her as we were driving back in a limousine to come to her performance. Sent her to the hotel. We had the presidential suite. The hotel said, she's coming. We're going to put her in the presidential suite up on the top floor. And we checked it out beforehand. They had a bidet. They had all these fancy things in there, and they had a dining room and all that. So I get her to the hotel, and she's going to be so happy. I walk her to the elevator, and all these people try to get on the elevator. She goes, no, you all go. Mr. Dixon and I will go up separately. So we went up she goes, where are we going? And my assistant was with me. And so my assistant said, we're taking you to the presidential suite. And she looked at us. She goes, oh, no, dear. I don't go above the 3rd floor because if there's a fire, I won't be able to get out. And so the hotel was completely booked because of our conference. So what ended up happening is we went down to the front desk and said, is there any suites available on the 3rd floor? And they said, they're all taken. But I said, can we give the person in one of those suites the presidential suite? So my answer, within a half hour, the guy was moved up into the presidential suite. Maya had her third floor and she was having dinner before the performance, and it was perfect. And she lit up the house. She sang, she read poetry, she told stories, and we had choirs, gospel choirs that evening. We had musicians play, we had all the TV cameras in the back filming. It was a magical event.
So can you also talk about how many people you planned and how many people showed up?
We all right. It was so interesting. So we sold about six or maybe about I'm trying to think about seven. About, we sold probably about 1,200 total tickets, which was a lot. We had probably about 12, 1,300 chairs set up. We told them with the number we sold. We didn't realize, we thought maybe another 200 or 300 would come to the door. So we were all sitting in there helping the band get set up and the choir get set up and everything like that. So when we opened the door to the ballroom, it was the largest ballroom they had. The line went all the way down the convention center, all the way back around and out the door. And we didn't know how many people. We ended up with about 3,400 people that night.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we had to have chairs set up. It was panic all the way. We had a chains box about this big with about $200, $300 worth of chains, thinking we can handle this. And we had to end up, trying to find cash. So we went to the main station. We went to the main hotel base. Said, we need money. We need cash. You have cash on hand? Because it was
And
just so much.
that time the bank, the credit card things were maybe
Yeah.
not there, right?
No, no, no. Yeah, bank cards and all that. We were still the phone calls. We had it. I had walkie talkies. That was the only thing we could use. There were no cell phones, so we had to go to pay phones to call. So we didn't know when someone was going to show up at the airport on time or not. Till you got to the airport.
Right,
But
right.
but she
थ्याङ्क
did
यू डाक्टर
wonderful.
डिक्सन। मैले उहाँलाई सोधेको थिएँ माया एन्जेलो ल्याउनु भयो, माया एन्जेलो भनेको आउँदा कस्तो भयो भन्दा उहाँ राष्ट्रपति क्लिन्टनको इनागुरेसन स्पिच उहाँले बोल्नु भएको थियो। त्यस पछाडि उहाँ धेरै चर्चित हुनुहुन्थ्यो, उहाँलाई जानुभयो, एयरपोर्टमा जानुभयो, उहाँले भेट्नुभयो। त्यो भनेको 1998तिरको कुरा। इट्स 1998 राइट, अराउन्ड 1998।
No, this was 1993.
Oh,
That was the
सरी
first time.
98
Yeah,
93
93 to 95.
1993तिरको कुरा हो, त्यो चाहिँ राष्ट्रपति क्लिन्टनको टाइममा। अनि उहाँ आइसके पछाडि बहुत धेरै ठुलो तामझामको कुरा भयो, किनभने उहाँको नामले गर्दाखेरि। र उहाँ आएर उहाँलाई दिएको कोठाको कुराकानी गरिसकेर अब अचम्मको कुरा चाहिँ के भयो भने उहाँहरूले कमसेकम 1200-1500जना मान्छे आउँछ भनेर प्लान गरेको समयको त्यति बेला 1993तिर मान्छेको फोनहरू खालि डायलिङ फोन मात्रै थियो, सेलफोन थिएन। त्यो गर्दाखेरि भरे मान्छे अरू मान्छे 1400-1500जना नयाँ मान्छे आएर चाहिँ ठुलो कोठामा अर्कै खालको त्यो पैसा तिर्ने कुरा पनि अर्कै बनाएर अनि त्यो विभिन्न किसिमका तामझामहरू गरेर चाहिँ कार्यक्रम गरेर उहाँले गीत विभिन्न किसिमका कविता भन्ने गीत गाउने सो गरेर चाहिँ कार्यक्रम गर्नुभएको थियो भनेर उहाँले बनाउनुहुँदैछ। Burhan Ahmad and Dr. Kevin Dixon is authentic leader who genuinely cares about marginalized communities. Thank you, Burhan. Burhan also is watching.
Yes.
So, Dr. Dixon, now go ahead.
I was going to say, in Bruhan, my work with you and my work with Bruhan and Liban really helped me to understand the various communities. And you all were immersed in the communities, and you helped us to bring in mental health first aid, which was very new. And you found both individuals in Pittsburgh to be able to do that. So, it was leaders like Burhan and Buwan and several others that really cared about the community and did the real work in the community, whether you got paid or not, because there was no money available to you. While other agencies were receiving dollars to do this work, they weren't getting the impact that you all had. So thank you both for the work that you've done.
All right, thank you. So now we are getting towards the end of this thing. So my personal experience again, I went to you through you. I went to Adam Board and all those things because there was a big need of mental health need in our community. It's still right now. Like, in matter of fact, a few hours ago today, I was talking to one person. She called me. She found my number somewhere else through internet or whatever. She was telling she's struggling in her house because of her husband has a problem with alcohol and a lot of issues going on. And yes, there are so many issues. Suicide is one of the biggest problem. Even today, we lost like a few days ago one person we lost here in Black Lake as well. So those things were there, and you made that happen. Like, this thing can be done about the Center for New American. Can you share me about that situation for our audience to know what you did there and how you made that thing possible?
And you're talking about
center here in Reynoldsburg that was opened
Oh,
for this NCCC, that North Community Counseling Services.
Yeah. What we had to do is reach out to our provider community because of licensure issues and certification issues, we had to do that. And so, like we did with the Latino community or the Somali community, we worked through our provider agencies. But we said to our provider agencies, you have to understand those communities. You have to learn to work with those communities. You have to be able to immerse yourself in there and learn about them because number one, you have to establish trust. And if there's no trust, there's no progress in moving forward. And we weren't sure how it would work. But when we had what we call you all community brokers, individuals who work in the community, it helped to educate not only the community, but it helped to educate us. And what we did with the Somali community, we actually had imams come in and do training, language classes for us. We did the same thing with the Latino community. Did the same thing with the Bhutanese community, but you were kind of my centerpiece. And I didn't know many other individuals, and you really worked so hard, and I was so appreciative of the volunteer work that you did in providing the resources. During the pandemic, you reached out, you worked with the public health to do all this work. And if it wasn't for you, none of this would have happened. So yeah, you give Adam H credit, but that's our job. You did this because it's your passion, it's your community. So I've got to show deference there. And then whatever little bit of resources we provided, that's what we're supposed to do.
But thank you, Dr. Dixon. So, but the result of that one is I can tell you today, significant number of Vietnamese American getting benefit out of that center, which is in Reynoldsburg. I think there are around 5 or 7 people, maybe 10. That many number of people are working there, providing case management, many other services. We're connecting them to resources, which was envisioned like 10 years ago, and now it's been in action right now.
Yeah,
So, thank you for whatever you have done. I know for sure if you were not there, something different would have happened. I don't know that part, but this would not have happened. I can
yeah.
guarantee that. So because of your work that's been
Yeah.
there, it's been working right now.
And your work with the with because I asked you to volunteer with the police training or with the police academy, and that was really significant because again, the police officers had this mentality that we come in, we take control, and and you, like you said earlier, a lot of the people from the community did not understand that you're not supposed to pay police officers. That's considered a bribe. And so you had to educate police officers. So when someone offers you money thinking that, my whole life, my whole adult life, I've been having to do this. So I just think that it's the same process here. And that could get you in a lot of trouble in this country. And, so we had to educate them to not think that they're just getting bribed, because they would take it not very good.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. So towards the end, so as we mentioned, there are so many challenges, there are so many opportunities in
Mhm.
this country. So I think through your example, your dad took the right action at the right time, so you got this opportunity for you now. So our community is new here. The young people, there are many are making rightful decisions. Some of them maybe still confused. Can you tell some of the opportunities that are available now? You are in OSU in a social science, right? Uh,
Social work. Yeah.
Social work, not social work. So can you share some of the opportunities that our kids who are in middle school, high school, college students can grab in here in Central Ohio, so that they can lead a better life and get a better opportunity for society as well as for themselves as
Yeah.
well?
One of the great things about Central Ohio is this vast number of educational institutions. You have different, school-based initiatives, which we funded a lot of school initiatives in various suburban communities. But you have Columbus State, you have Franklin University, you have so many universities that are looking for bringing diverse individuals in because it helps educate them. Your experiences are very significant. And when we started early on with the Somali community, we went over to Columbus State and we had a hosted an event with Adam H and the Somali community to try to convince them or open opportunities up for them as case managers or potentially social workers that become licensed. And so what we had one day, we had a open house, but everybody who came to open house said, we want to go into business. We want a business. So we didn't end up with anybody in social work. But eventually, the persistence of, those institutions, we start to see some folks entering OSU, social work, as well as Columbus State and Ohio Dominican and some of these other institutions. And I'm thinking that with capital and all these institutions and the resources that they have, look at that as an opportunity to grow and develop, regardless of what discipline, but also never forget where you came from, because that you have to always go back to your home community to serve. Because if you take that knowledge to benefit the broader community and your own community doesn't benefit, it does us no good. So make sure you take advantage of it. And again, resources are available. I'm not sure how many now with the changes in administration, but I know at one point there were a lot of resources because they want international students to be a part of it, because that teaches us about the global society, things we don't know about. And this America only is not a way to go. It really, we have to open up, because we're in a global economy, whether we like it or not, and it's never going to go back again. And we have to use the skills, the talents, the abilities, the ideas of 100% of the workforce, where nobody is advantaged or disadvantaged in the process.
Thank you. Thank you. So important, Dr. Dixon. So so many things, but like, uh, uh, make sure be who you are, right?
Yes,
Don't be using
authentic.
camouflaging to be authentic. So that is Dr. Dixon भन्नुहुँदैछ, आफू जो हो आफ्नो स्वरूप तपाईँले आफ्नो जरामा चाहिँ सम्झिराख्नुहोस्, जरो चाहिँ नमेट्ने काम गर्नुहोस् कहिले पनि। जति जे गरे पनि जरो मेटियो पनि काम लाग्दैन। तपाईँले लार्जर कम्युनिटीमा जति सर्भ गरे आफ्नो समाजलाई, आफ्नो कम्युनिटीलाई चाहिँ तपाईँले गर्न सक्नुभयो भने त्यसको अर्थ लाग्दैन। त्यस कारणले यहाँ बहुत धेरै रिसोर्सेसहरू छन् सेन्ट्रल ओहायोमा, कलेजमा, स्कुलमा बहुत धेरै छन्, किन धेरैवटा कलेजहरू ठाउँमा भएकाले गर्दा बढ्ने, अगाडि जाने धेरै मौकाहरू छन्। यी मौकालाई तपाईँले, हामी सबै समाजका व्यक्तिहरूले मौकाको फाइदा लिनुपर्छ भन्नुहुँदैछ डाक्टर डिक्सनले। So thank you, Dr. Dixon. So these are some of my questions to you. And again, as always, I would like to thank you for all that you have done for our community. Do you want to add anything else at the end?
I just want people to feel that you belong here in this community. The community embraces you, understands your needs, and the community is a resource, whether it's the mental health service providers, alcohol substance use service providers, whether it's community services that are out there. Take advantage of it. Whether it's the Recreation and Parks Division, take advantage of it. Enjoy the parks. Get out and experience Columbus and be a part of it. And then when you have cultural community events, make sure that you invite people from outside the community so that they can understand and appreciate your food, your culture, your dress, your dance, your music, all of that, because that helps us all grow. And I think if we can model what you and Burhan and others have done in the short time you all have been here, I think we will all be a better community for it.
उहाँले भन्नुहुँदैछ सबै कुरा गरेर जुन चाहिँ आफ्नो यहाँको आफ्नो समाज हो त्यो समाजलाई उन्नति गर्न लागि सबैजना बाहिरको कुनै कार्यक्रम गर्दाखेरि बाहिरको मान्छेहरूलाई बोलाउने, आफू बाहिर जाने, सबै कुरा सिक्ने र अब समाजमा एक आपसमा संलग्नता हुने, यस्ता काम हामीले काम गरिरह्यौँ भने अघि बढ्न सकिन्छ, समाजलाई अगाडि बढाउन सकिन्छ, समाज राम्रो हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा उहाँले गर्नुभयो। र त्यति भन्दै तपाईँ जो हेर्ने दर्शक हुनुहुन्छ, आज अलिक कम्ती छौँ, तपाईँले यो भिडियोलाई सेयर गर्नुहोला, कमेन्ट गर्नुहोला, लाइक गर्नुहोला। तपाईँ केही क्वेसन छ भने र आउने दिनहरूमा फेरि यस्तै भिडियो लिएर म आउनेछु। र त्यति भन्दै सबैजनालाई आज कार्यक्रममा यहीँ अन्तिम भएको जानकारी गराउँदै यहाँबाट बिदा हुन चाहन्छु। हवस् त, नमस्ते। थ्याङ्क यू, डाक्टर डिक्सन।
Thank you. Appreciate it.